Hello everybody, my name's Naomi and this is 365 Days of Prog. Now this is a new project I'm beginning. I've made a list as you can see on screen right now and it has 365 different prog albums. Now I'm going to listen to one prog album for each day of 2022 starting from now, January the 1st. So, because I want to spice things up, this list is currently alphabetical and I want to do this differently. So what we're going to do is we're just going to randomize it like this and we are going to get our first album for this year, which will be Godbluff by Graaf Generator. So without further ado, let's get right into this.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So I hope the intro explained it all. Now without further ado, the first thing we need to do is to listen to this album for the first time. So I'm gonna grab my good old headphones and I'm gonna give it a listen, and here you can enjoy a compilation of me doing facial expressions while listening to this for the first time. So have a good time at it.
In his wake he leaves scorched earth and work in vain.
So, I just finished listening to it for the first time and it has been pretty nice. It has been pretty good. This is personally one of my first acquaintances with Graaf Generator because I have not heard many of their songs in the past. I've actually known, I think, one or two. So this is the first full-fledged album that I've been hearing from them and they're pretty cool. So let's get right into it. So I think the first thing I really liked about this album is the way the singer sings. It has that vibe of Peter Gabriel with Genesis, the way he talks and sings at the same time. He's more like telling you the lyrics and adding emotions onto that most of the time, which is pretty nice. Although I must say the singing sometimes just get kind of lost in the mixing and you can't really understand what they're saying, and I was with the lyrics open right in front of me and I could not comprehend what he was saying, and thus I could not even understand the basic narrative of the song, so it was kind of lost. The other thing I have to mention is the saxophone. I really like the saxophone. This is a very saxophone heavy album. Most bands, they have their instruments, you know, Jethro Tull and Genesis, they have their flutes, and Renaissance has their like orchestral voices going on, but this specific album just had that saxophone, which I really liked. And I hope to see more albums by them and by other artists which include saxophone as much as they did. Now the other instrument which I really enjoyed in this album was the drums. The drum parts by Guy Evans are pretty amazing. They can get totally chaotic at times. I cannot tell how he can keep the time meter going on, but he probably can and he's doing a great job at it. The chaos within the songs is just so much more brighter. It's so much more exaggerated with those drums and those beats. It's very non-uniform how he drums, and it's great. It just adds a lot to the album. I really like that and I really enjoyed that and I just love it. Now the album itself, although it has been pretty nice, I do have to say that it has been a bit repetitive at times. Now, I wouldn't say that all the songs, the 4 songs on the album, they sound the same to each other, but I have to say that most songs stay the same mostly all throughout the track. These songs, they usually have the same thing going for them, just with different voicings and pacing and maybe lyrics added onto them, so I find this album a bit repetitive. Now, it might be a good thing at times, but I do think this album had that going for it mostly all throughout the runtime, so I would say that I prefer it a bit more different. So I do have to give a huge props to David Jackson, who played the saxophone on this album. He just carried this album all throughout with the saxophone, and I really enjoyed it. I want to see him in more Graaf Generator albums. Now I know this band is a band infamous of breaking up and, you know, reforming after a while, and I don't know if he stays with the group for long, but if he does, I really hope that we would get to hear his magical saxophone sound mainly in other albums which are on this list. Now, for that, I have to say my favorite song on this album was Arrow. I really liked it. It had the beginning with the ethereal saxophone in it, and it kind of became semi-like 21st Century Schizoid Man by King Crimson at the time, and that recognition made it even more likable in my opinion. So the beginning of the song was great, the mid section of the song was really nice, it was really heavy and chaotic, and I'm really into that. And the song just wraps up pretty nicely, so I like that song, and that's why it's my favorite from this album. The one before last section of this album would be to talk about the cover. Now, this time, unfortunately, there is not a lot to say about it. As you can see, the cover itself is pretty underwhelming, and maybe that's its charm. It just has a black background, it has the name of the band on it, and the logo is pretty nice, and I know that it kept on coming with the band and the albums later on, I think 2 more times. And then you have the album name just literally stamped onto the bottom right corner of it in red. There's not a lot to say about a cover like that besides the fact that it's very simplistic, you get the meaning across, everyone knows who you're listening to and what the album name is, there is no more to see in it, and you don't really develop any expectations for this album based on the cover itself. You have to get it from the music itself, basically. It stands alone in this album, and I think that's a great choice, and this cover is pretty nice. All in all, I have to give this album a rating of 6 out of 10. Yes, I know it sounds low, but remember, it's on the good side of things. I'm just comparing it to the other albums which I really love in the prog genre, and it does not compare to them in magnificence, although it is pretty good and it does represent the genre quite well. So that's about it, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed this one. I'll see you all tomorrow with Griffin by Griffin, their first self-titled album. So we will see you all back then. Until then, bye bye guys.